Hello, we are live on LinkedIn, we hope. Just testing out the platform. It does say I'm live here, so I'm going to check out my own live thing here. So we're live on LinkedIn. This is the first time we've done this, so it'd be interesting to test and see how many people join. We're going to have a conversation today with a chap called Greg Holt, who I'll introduce in a minute, but I thought I would let a few people kind of jump on the stream. And so today we're going to be talking about kind of video, AI, innovation and fear. So if you've got any questions around this type of stuff, someone's phone went off in the background, very professional. So if you've got any questions around that stuff, it'd be great to hear. I think especially the fear piece, there's a really interesting discussion we were having before about why people are so sort of not keen to get on video a lot of the time. So, you know, I understand from my own perspective that there is definitely a fear piece behind it. I'd love to hear challenges you've had within your organisation to get people on camera, what your thought process behind not going on camera might be. So it'd be interesting to explore that, and maybe we can solve that problem today. I don't know, we'll see. If we can come up with the answer to the question, here, have this, drink this special drink before you go live and you'll be fine. That would be good. So we've got a few people on now. We've got 9 viewers. That's good. A few people jumping on here. Chris Walton, who works for us. Hi, Chris. Hi, Toby. Hi, Nicholas. Thanks for joining us. If you've got any questions around fear and video or return, so we were discussing before we started this video about how a company might spend tens of thousands of pounds preparing PowerPoint presentations for a presentation, yet when it comes to spending 3k on a video, everyone starts getting in a flap about what the return on investment is, whereas no one's really asking the question for the PowerPoint presentation, or I don't know, the £10,000 you spend on coffee at your conference, for example. Like, no one's going to kind of ask a return on investment case around that. So I think we'll just jump straight into the content. So I'll introduce to you Greg Holt, who is someone I know quite well and has been working in the video market for
probably about 15 years. Yeah, so in and around it.
So tell us a bit about your background in the video market then, Greg.
Well, I've always worked, in providing services into large corporates predominantly. So it started probably in the 2000 when people were building out their first intranets and they wanted an RSS or XML newsfeed, and gradually text has turned into video. So increasingly I've been providing customers with the ability to deliver video, maybe overcoming challenges with their bandwidth and their network so that they could deliver video, because that's historically been a challenge to people. And then it's been moving into the world of, well, how can we create a more compelling experience around video, other than a talking head, in a square box on an intranet site. How can we make it more compelling? How can we bring the consumer experience into the enterprise? And that's what I'm pretty passionate about. Trying to overcome those barriers that still seem to be there today.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, so I think so an interesting place to start would be, I think, the fear around being a human being on video. I think there's this big, so we had we were at an event last week and we had a really interesting round table, and one of the things that we talked about was like people who work in professional services.
Yeah.
To go on video and be super professional doesn't really work, or I think there might be some context in which it works if you're teaching someone, you're giving someone a technical explanation of something in exchange for, like, you don't have to read this 50-page PDF. Here's a 5-minute video explaining it. Yeah. Fine. But in most cases, you're trying to make a human connection, and there's this kind of fear of letting go of that professional persona, like being a bit kind of, just being normal.
Well, I think people. There's the professional persona, but I think there's maybe a mask that all of us maybe carry into the workplace, but we don't change our DNA when we go to the workplace. We're still who we are. You said before we did this that you didn't sleep well, particularly last night, because you were thinking about this, and you were thinking about it because it could make an impact in your business, your brand. But as we get chatting, this is a subject you're comfortable with. You know how to make video. You have lots of customers. So I think as long as people are confident in talking about the subject matter, they'll feel confident on video. And also, if they're not kind of just talking into a camera, that they're having a conversation with someone, maybe they're having a conversation with an audience, because it is pretty unnatural to go in a room, look at a camera, and just speak to it.
Yeah, I did a webinar the other day. It's the first time I've ever done a kind of an outbound webinar like that.
Yeah.
And I was in this room and I was talking to the cameras, and it was very odd doing a presentation.
On your own?
Yeah, on my own. No one
Yeah.
else was here, just on my own, to no one else. And so you can get some feedback. You can ask people to give you a high five on the comments, but really it's not quite the same. And I do often suggest, if people are struggling with the idea of talking to camera, that an easy medium is to kind of go, okay, well, let's just have a conversation. And it's amazing how quickly you can forget that actually that we are being filmed. Like, you know, I'm not really thinking about that now, that we're on camera and that we're talking. Whereas if I was staring down the lens of the camera, it does become a bit of a different skill. You know, although I've spent quite a bit of time trying to work on that as a skill, it is something that you can perfect, but it's a difficult, it's a hard place to start.
Yeah, but the thing about the video, if you're going to create a video, there's got to be some kind of purpose to it, right? So if it's one-to-one, say like I'm talking to a camera right now, that's like me talking to one person. But if I'm trying to share something with a larger group of people, then you're probably trying to educate, engage, you know, and so video is just a different way of sharing information. And what I try and focus on is like, what is the reason that people aren't doing it more? Like, why are we still using slides, PowerPoint, audio, as opposed to communicating more via video? Most corporates, it seems to be a preserve of, you know, the senior leadership who go on video and share content. But
so an interesting point that we came up with before was how senior do you have to be on video? Right, like so where's the benchmark? You know, you middle management, you senior management. Where are you allowed to have control over that output? Because as we know, right from when you start a company, you can email, you can send messages to people, you can, you know, potentially often what happens in companies is the most junior person is in charge of the social media post, right? Which is, you know, one of the biggest outbound kind of pieces of information. So that's an interesting subject. That if anyone's got any comments on like how senior you have to be to...
Yeah, it's a good point. Almost anybody could send an email to the entire company, but you wouldn't be allowed to send a video to that entire company. I'm not suggesting you should, but your staff are fundamentally the heart and soul of your business. They engage with your customers, they know your marketplace. No one knows your business environment better than those people engaging, you know, with your customers. And I think there's a huge amount of untapped knowledge and insight that could be gained from getting those people to give feedback on success stories or market insight on a regular basis. And I'm just talking about a short video. They don't even need to be on the video. You know, it could be taking a video of, look, I've just seen this particular workplace environment, I think that would work really well, or this product line, and share it with people who could watch it and digest it very quickly. And you can only do that with video because people can't be bothered and don't have enough time to write a whole blog around what they did. And even if they did write the blog, no one would read it. We are swamped with information. You know, the hardest thing is to figure out what we should and shouldn't be viewing or watching, what is relevant to us. Which is where AI can come in and should come in.
So it's an interesting kind of link into kind of tools around AI in video and how what it can enable, especially if you've already got a big backlog of footage, that you can use it to sort and organise things, or you can use it to sort and organise huge amounts of data that wouldn't normally be able to be done. So there's some interesting examples around like the justice system, and that we've talked about in the past. So you want to cover a bit about that?
Well, so video is everywhere. So I mean, in justice, you know, there's lots of people who are looking at programs around from, you know, curb to court. You know, there's evidence which is captured at various stages of a journey, and the challenge is that video is big data. There is a huge amount of content inside a video. Video is a large file, and if you start taking videos of everything, how are you going to figure out what to watch, and operationally, how are you going to do it? So a lot of evidence which is captured, you know, with it from a body-worn camera, or maybe it's evidence that is submitted to insurance companies around a road accident, or someone's filmed the damage on their car. It's just not looked at because the file size is too big, and there's no data associated with it. Someone submits a video with a title, here is the evidence of car crash, But
well, if you're lucky, that probably just says IMG 079264.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
So you end up with this massive archive of data that has no intelligence, and you end up throwing it in the bin because you don't have enough time to sit there and physically look through it. So you've got to apply some kind of AI to it to do scene segmentation, object recognition, so you can start getting the intelligence out of it.
So it's interesting. I think we'll just go. There's been a question here or a comment from a guy called Luke. I'm not going to try and pronounce your surname, Luke, because I'll probably butcher it. He says he completely agrees on the point of getting professional service individuals to be more casual on film. So one of the things that came up in the conversation we had the other day on that round table was, well, why don't we just film it on our iPhones? And yes, right. So we completely understand the idea behind that you take away all the professional equipment and it makes everyone relax. However, what that does also do is lowers the production quality hugely, because in theory an iPhone is very, very good quality, but actually what happens is the person that's holding it doesn't have the technical skills. Like if I give an iPhone to one of my production team, they'll produce a lovely piece of content. It won't be as good as the piece of content that they could have produced with a professional camera, because it gives them more flexibility. So it's interesting around, like, we're saying more casual or more relaxed. Like
it's about the audience. What are you trying to achieve? So if this is, let's say that we work in a sales team with 30 people and we're all on the road meeting customers, me creating a short video in my car saying, hey guys, just got this brilliant bit of insight from a customer around some competitive information. That, shared with 30 of my peer group, needs no form of edit whatsoever. They know who I am, it's fine. Audio is actually the most important thing, so they can hear rather than see. But if the audience is getting larger, then yes, you'll start to put in more professional bodies, do some editing. But that's no different to the way that we treat an email from a senior exec. Your CEO is not writing his own emails to the entire company. That is checked and manicured by his PR and internal comms team. And you do want to apply that intelligence to your videos, so you make sure they're delivering the right kind of message to employees or whoever your audience is. But I just think that with a little bit of help from companies like yours and others to educate and maybe bring down the barriers or the fear around how difficult it is to create a video.
Maybe there's some ideas around the application of different emotion to different pieces of content. Like, I think professionalism is seen as very serious. I don't necessarily think you have to be very serious to be very professional. That doesn't necessarily cross over. Like, so I'm a great one for this. I swear, and I try not to in professional meetings, but I just do. Yeah. And actually, that's me. And I occasionally say the F word or whatever it is. And sometimes it's quite funny in meetings where that hasn't happened, and then I accidentally say it, and then you can see actually everyone's gone, oh, okay, that's okay now, we can do that. Yep. Maybe there's an idea around what the difference between being serious and professional, and actually you can be professional but still be like happy and like enjoy
one of the best videos I saw was it was a CEO, and they were using a video conferencing room. They had a few managers, and they started the video a couple of minutes early, and the CEO was eating his sandwich that he'd bought in the canteen. And all of the chat was like, I had the same sandwich as the CEO today. And it was humanising, right? It was just, he's a human being. Yes, he's in charge of the company, but he's still just a human being like all of us who have our daily struggles. So I think that there is a danger of trying to be someone you're not on camera, because people will see through it. You're still you. And hopefully that's a good thing that people want to work and engage with. So I think that as we get more used to being on camera, if we are confident in the area that we're talking around, people feel comfortable. And in an environment where you haven't got just one camera or it's a bit too intense.
Yeah, and that was also an interesting point. I'll just address the audience on this. So if anyone's after a series of CEO eating sandwich videos, give me a call and we'll put that together for you. But I'm being a bit flippant about the point, but I get what you mean. It's being human and normal and having those
like
moments.
Turning your phone off when you're doing a video.
I'm sure I did this turn off. The audience probably can't hear that. It's fine. So we were then talking about kind of AI, and then we went back to the point about fear. So I think we've talked around this idea of no return.
Yeah.
So I'm quite keen to always try and push to like, what's the return on investment for this piece of content you're making? Whether it's internal comms, so whether it's one of our companies that we work with filming a town hall, or whether it's them making a piece of marketing material for social media, or whether they're making a TV advert. I want to know. So we just made a TV advert recently. I really want to know when that TV advert goes live, how many hits on the website did they get? How many of those hits that were new? How many people?
That's what everyone wants to know, right? It's the KPIs. I think that one of the things people have done historically is that they've spent a lot of money on maybe it's a CEO town hall, and how many people watched. And historically, people haven't known because there wasn't any analytics in place. I think most video platforms out there now give you some analytics, some more than others, around who was watching, when was the drop-off rate, did you have 100 viewers, but after 2 minutes, everyone had lost interest? That's the kind of feedback you need to know, because there's no point in creating the next 50 minutes if there's no one there, because no one's going to go back and watch that archive if if it's intended to be a live event. So I think that you do want to know the analytics and who is interacting with your video. There's still this bit of a barrier whereby people don't pay that attention to what they're doing with words and emails and some marketing campaigns. I think in some ways it's actually easier to get, data on who's engaging with video versus other forms of marketing messaging because of the technology now.
Yeah, definitely.
So again, probably that's an education piece, and also the cost of videos come down so much.
Yeah. So it's an interesting point. So we look behind the scenes now, and here you'll see Chris Harper, who's the director for the shoot. So we have here 3 cameras with the 4th one shooting behind the scenes, a mixing desk editing it, and I think the idea of this is a bit like a webinar, and the idea of this is webinars used to be, or are still really, someone with a laptop pointing up their nose with a window behind them, you can hardly hear what they're saying. Applying a professional setup like this to a webinar, to a webinar, I think it's really really adds value. You can mix in slides at high quality and things like that. And 10 years ago, this would have cost you tens of thousands, and this now costs, you're pushing.
But you know what you're doing, right? So you've got a team of people who know what they're doing, and that is one of the other barriers that, while some people now have an AV team, often it might be one person.
Yeah.
So I think there probably is a little bit of, people need to develop the internal skills in-house to make it more accessible for everybody.
Yeah.
Because often this is your brand, your reputation, so you do need to do it in a professional manner if it's going to a larger audience.
Well, that's an interesting point on that. The technical side, when we were at this conference last week, we kind of made a joke about how it used to be really difficult to put video across the company network. So you have this video which is quite funny, and someone's downloaded it, and it took 4 hours to download. And then he ordered a DVD, and the DVD was broken, and it didn't play in his computer.
Yeah.
And we sort of thought, well, okay, well, obviously that's not a problem anymore. And then 2 of the people we talked to had that exact problem. Like, one lady couldn't send a video file over her company network to her colleagues in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And then they can't use YouTube because it's blocked. They can't use WeTransfer because it's blocked.
Everything was blocked.
And I didn't quite realise, I didn't appreciate actually, for some people, especially in internal communications, that the infrastructure just isn't available.
Do you know what? I'd say the infrastructure is available. It's just the way that people have set it up, right?
Yeah.
These are solvable problems, and sometimes it's just a conversation with IT around opening up a firewall or sanctioning a particular video platform to be used. So there's a bit of an education piece going on. I think that people who don't embrace video right now, considering 80% of the internet is video, are going to find that their employees and their staff and their customers will start engaging with competitors because it's just the way the market's going. It's not to say that you still shouldn't create text and other forms of communication, because you need something for everybody. But if you completely blank video, or don't at least get on the train to start understanding how to make it work in your company, and pretty quickly, you'll find yourself behind the times, and then it'll cost you a huge amount of money to try and catch up, because everyone else will have moved forward.
Yeah. So it moves us nicely onto sort of the idea around innovation. And like you've said, you've been working in the sort of enterprise video market for 15 years, and it's driving you a bit nuts about how kind of slow adoption is. You know, you look at something like Netflix and you think we've got this really kind of strong platform, and people expect the content to be delivered to them at the right time in the right format that just works. Yeah, within companies we can't seem to keep up with that. So what kind of what innovate? You know, we talked around innovation around people not being scared. So I think there's some innovation around the human aspect of like production of content, and what's innovations around kind of the technical side of it as well.
Yeah, so inside of large corporates is not necessarily an easy problem to solve.
Yeah.
There are lots of systems that you need to integrate with, figure out who can watch, which content for compliance reasons. But one of the things that stops...
That should be doable though, right? Like that should. The technology is there to do it.
It's not. Honestly, it can be incredibly difficult because if you've got a large global organisation, you may have different parts of your organisation that can't engage with other bits of your company. So you kind of need to make sure there's some kind of wall between them so they can't share information.
Yeah.
Or you have to sanctify that a particular video, which might be talking about a particular medicine, which has been sanctioned in the EU, but hasn't been sanctioned in Asia, you can't then share that information with Asia because it's misinformation. So you do have to apply information security and compliance around this kind of content. And the other thing is that it's AI, really it's about your information architecture. So you've got to know what data you have, and video is just data.
Yeah.
You've got to know what you've got before you can start deriving any intelligence from it.
Yeah.
So Netflix, they know who you are, they know where you live, they know what you did yesterday and for the last month, right? So they've built up this track record of what you like to do and when. We haven't been able to do that yet in the enterprise, but it's coming because gradually people are homogenizing where they store their data and putting business rules around it so that they will be able to say, Greg Holt, you seem to like engaging in this kind of content, and I've looked in your diary and it says that you're going to Canary Wharf next week to talk about security. I'm going to send you a video around that the day before as a prompt around where we've been successful in that market. So gradually that kind of Netflix service will come into the corporate, but there's still...
Yeah, imagine if the homepage of the intranet was like the homepage of Amazon or the homepage of Netflix. Where
there's a lot of data, you've got to do a lot of data science and a lot of data mining first.
Yeah.
So you've got to get your information architecture nailed first before you can really get to that Netflix style experience. But I think also you've got to have the good content. Right, at the moment, a lot of organisations produce video and they only produce a relatively small amount of video because it costs a lot to produce and they need to produce it in a fashion that is relevant to their entire company, which means you don't go to any depth. As people start creating more and more content, line of business specific, I will start receiving very specific, relevant information to me, which will make me more productive. Because I don't need to know about every bit of our business. I need to know about my bit of the business and how to do my job better.
The bit you need to know when you need to know it. I think it's interesting of all the kind of challenges that companies are trying to kind of solve at the moment, and like this kind of piece around kind of how we propagate information around the company is, I think, quite critical in terms of, especially over the next 5-10 years, where the competitive advantages are going to get slimmer and slimmer, and when you're recruiting. Especially at the moment, that it's difficult to recruit because there's more jobs than people. Get into a debate about that, but so making your company a better place to work because you're providing more information, which makes people perform better, saves them time.
It's customer experience. Customer experience is the newest and most popular buzzword around, right? You've got to, particularly for a new generation, it's all about how do they want to go to work. They've got lots of choices. They're not thinking about a job for life or even the next 5 years. It's this year I'm going to do this. And if they like the working environment and the systems that they get to use, they'll stay because they're happy. But if you force them to use and engage with antiquated technology, and this is something that a lot of the large professional services organisations struggle with, new grads coming in soon find themselves disenchanted because they're forced to use old technology. which is not what they want to be doing, because that's not the future. So you've got to be providing your new intake of staff with relevant technology that they use today and what they want to do going forward. And that's the challenge that large companies have.
We're up to about 20 minutes, so I think we'll sort of cut off there. And
let's get that phone, huh?
Yeah, probably should do. So it's been great to talk to you. So one last question: high five, fist bump, or handshake?
Oh God, it's a hard one. I'll go for the fist bump.
Fist bump, nice.
Cheers,
Cool.
dude.
Well done. Thank
Cheers,
you.
mate.
All good.